All right, and we are live. All right, I am so excited, so honored to have Emma Vites here on the Move Happy Movement podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Hi. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So for those that kind of don't know who you are, you and I connected through LinkedIn. I read through your bio. You have a book helping graduates really transition into the workspace, landing their dream job. Really was intrigued that you're passionate about helping other people as well, and really felt like we're like-minded in that fashion. You working in a few different countries, helping in sales and growth, that you sound like a power woman, and I'm like, people need to hear your story. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, that's so nice. And,
Yeah.
can I just say, like, it was so lovely, just hearing from you. And then when I've read about what you've done as well, and, helping people through depression, and I can really resonate from that. So I'll tell you a bit about my story. So, so as Erin mentioned, I wrote a book called The Graduate Bible, which is a coaching guide, teaching young people how to get jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also set up a company called The Apprentice Project. And The Apprentice Project is specifically designed to coach young people and really give them the skills that they need to succeed in their lives and their career. And what led me to all of this in the first place is I worked in the field of graduate recruitment in my early 20s, right? And I had a fantastic opportunity to go over to Sydney. I'm from the UK. But I was offered an opportunity to go over to Sydney and set up or run a recruitment business over there. And what we were doing was we were screening and assessing graduates for the competencies found in good salespeople and then placing them and training them. But one thing that really struck with me was we were literally rejecting 495 people a week. So only 5 out of the 500 made it through. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember that always kind of sat with me, and I was thinking, that's like really bad. Like, we're not offering any feedback. We're just literally putting them in a reject pile, and we've all been there. And I remember, like, I always had that thought process. And then what happened was, a few years later, I left Australia and I went traveling around the world on my own. And while I was traveling, the most traumatic event in my life to date happened. Like, my dad passed away, and he was, my best friend. Like, he was like a big influence. And I actually found myself, similar to your viewers, listeners, falling into a massive spiral of depression. And, I just remember, like, how hard that was for me. And the thing that kind of pulled me out of that was really just thinking about, well, what was my dad's contribution to the world? What were his gifts? And what could I do? And how could I add a contribution? And I remember my dad was a doctor and a philanthropist. He had a bunch of charities. And literally, no joke, when I was on my travels, I continued traveling, which a lot of people might think that's weird, but it really helped me, to be honest. And that's where I found spirituality and meditation. And so with all that, literally the book just came out of me. Like, it wasn't it wasn't even like me, like, you know what I mean? It was like something flowing through me that got that content out there, and led me to setting up the Apprentice Project. Now, unfortunately for me, and I'm sure we all know, we've all been there, especially with depression, I set up the Apprentice Project, and then literally I couldn't do it. Like, I had grief, like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd come back from my travels, the grief hit, and I found myself in a position where I was like, oh my God, I need to get a job, because right now I've run out of money. I've like had to move in with my grandparents, right? And I had to get a job. And to me, because my mission and vision of life was to help people and to give them a purpose, I thought, what company could I work for that shares that mission? And actually, the only company that I could think of was LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's mission and vision of the world is to make people more productive and successful, and to get them jobs. And so I applied for LinkedIn. This was 6.5 years ago, and I've been really fortunate. I got the job in London, and then they promoted me and moved me to San Francisco, and now I'm in New York. So I work for LinkedIn, but I have the book, and I also have my apprentice project, which is a coaching company on the side. And LinkedIn enables me to do all of what I love, which is brilliant.
You are a power woman. Oh my goodness. What a powerful story. And thank you so much for being vulnerable with us here on the show.
Yeah.
It's, I think that's another interconnected thing. And I don't have, I don't think I have it listed on my bio on LinkedIn anymore, but I had written kind of the story of the start, and my father had passed. And that was the time that was inspired with creating the whole Move Happy program in a psych hospital. So that was interesting that we had that connected together.
Yeah.
So incredible mindset. You had to have had an incredible mindset. And that's one of the pillars of Move Happy, to, overcome, to allow yourself to grieve and to go through the process of life and transition. What, from your experience in, both professional and personal world, what are some tips and strategies you've learned along the way on keeping a positive mindset despite all the chaos on the outside world?
Yeah. So, and I'm sure your listeners will totally resonate with this. There has been quite a few different traumas in my life. Like my brother passed away, my dad passed away. So, I genuinely do feel mindset has been the thing that has kept me going. And so I'll give you a bit of a story. So back in October 2016, so a few years ago now, I actually suffered a miscarriage, and that was horrific. Like, I've got two healthy, amazing kids now, but back then that was, and I'm sure people that have gone through that, it was awful. And what happened at that moment, though, they always say every traumatic event leads to something positive. So when my dad died, it led to me finding meditation and mindfulness. But when the miscarriage happened, I was living in San Francisco at the time, and they said, you've got to meet this woman. She's called Dr. Amy Cajay, and she's a happiness coach. And so I was like, huh? And a Reiki practitioner. And I went to meet with her, and I've been on her program now for 3 years. So I am almost a happiness coach as well, right? And I'm going to give you a few of those strategies right now, I wrote a post about this on LinkedIn as well. But honestly, what she says really resonated with me. And I'm also a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner. I don't know whether you've heard of NLP. Yeah, you're nodding. I don't know whether your viewers have, but what the beauty of NLP is it allows us to understand about the subconscious mind and about how opinions and perceptions are formed and how our thoughts are formed. And it really gives us an opportunity to be able to empower ourselves and to, take those thoughts, but change them, reframe them, so that we can have a positive mindset and outlook. And so going back to Amy, because I think that ties into a lot of what I'm saying about NLP. But what she made me do, and I've written about this, so you very, very free to read the article, and it has the links on there. But I start every morning now with a happiness morning routine. And
I love it.
I look a bit crazy. So really, our thoughts really determine our actions. So as long as we can have a positive mindset. So I wake up in the morning, I smile, I trick my brain that I'm happy. I declare that I'm happy by saying, look, this is the happiest day of my life. I jump up and down a few times. I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. I sing zippity doo dah. I laugh at myself. And genuinely, I know it sounds crazy. And then I have moment of gratitude. And you've probably heard this before, but it's so important to be grateful for what we have.
Yes.
And even when we're going through the worst moments, there's always something to be grateful for. And so this practice literally gives you at least 3 to 4 hours of positive energy and happiness. So that's enough to get us out of bed. That's enough to get us doing, right? Then once that 3 to 4 hours is dying down, the next step of the happiness program is to do 5 random acts of kindness. So literally, whether that is buying someone a coffee, giving a tip, writing to a friend, sending a text message, calling your grandma, whatever it is, 5 random acts of kindness. And then we have to watch our language. So going back to the neuro-linguistic programming, So 96% of what we do think and feel, as I mentioned, is subconscious. So we really have to be talking to our subconscious mind in a positive way. And that starts from our language, the words we use. So Amy suggested that I avoid and cut out the words no, not. Really hard, by the way, right? And I'm sure I am not. See, I just said not doing it right now. But no, not, can't, but, should, and try. And attempt to do that. So rather than no, say I'd rather, or rather than should, say could. You know, little things like that. And soon you're going to be tricking your subconscious mind that you are indeed positive, because our thoughts can really take us on a spiral of negativity.
Yeah.
So that's super important. And that's what I do in the afternoon. So the 5 random acts of kindness. And of course, as I mentioned, the language. And I'll also keep a little journal on me. So if I have a negative thought, I'll write it down. And then literally opposite it, I put the positive. So I am awful, or I'm crap at my job, or I'll put the opposite. Like, I'm really good at my job. I have proven this by doing this, right? And then at night, my nighttime routine is to read through all of those positive statements that I've made throughout the day. Again, going into my subconscious mind and really, changing my brain. Our brains are neuroplastic, which is brilliant. So we can change them with positive thoughts. So that's what I do. And then I'll also give myself 10 minutes of Reiki, and which is, you can read that in your own time, but it really is a fantastic healing art. So that's what I do.
That is so awesome. I love it. And those are very practical. So thank you for sharing those tips. The second pillar of Move Happy is about building community. And you've touched on that with being a part of that doctor's happiness group. I'm sure there's other coaches or soon to be coaches in that group as well. Yeah. And, learning to work in your business community and whatnot. What are some things that you've learned along the way that you'd recommend for people maybe struggling to get into a community, or if they're wanting to start one in the business sector or whatnot?
Yeah, so I think I know what you mean by a community. It's just obviously what you're talking about is being part of a group of people that are like-minded and going through similar things and being able to share those experiences, right? So I think the number one thing that we've got to remember is everybody is craving connection. Everybody. And so even in your darkest moments, when you're feeling really alone, you've got to understand that probably 90% of the people that you're seeing on the street or looking at on your Instagram are also feeling alone, right? Everybody is going through their stuff. And so there's a beautiful quote, I think, it's be kind to everyone because you don't know what's going on, right? And I think a lot of the time we make assumptions that everybody is just leading a really perfect life when it may not be. And I know that I had that in my own personal experiences. People always looked at me and said, oh, she's doing well. But that's because I've trained my brain to do well. And I've given myself coping mechanisms. So I think to start and understand that there are people that are craving community as well is the number one place, and have that mindset and have that belief. And then I also believe that you'll attract you'll attract the community. So whatever you put out there, so perception is projection, whatever you put out there, you will attract back, right? So even if you started a blog or do what you're doing, which is create this movement or a podcast or a social media site, or join a program. So if you go on meetup.com, if you just search on Craigslist, there's people that are creating groups everywhere, right? You don't have to pay for it necessarily. So, looking back at my own personal experience, right now I'm in a coaching cohort because I love and I'm passionate about coaching, right? So I found a community there, and we speak every day with these 5 girls, and we're so like-minded, and I love them. Like, I feel like, they're my people. And I'm a new mom, right, as I mentioned. So on, where I live, there's a mummies group. And so that's just a free group on Facebook, and I always say, hey, do you want to meet for coffee, and like
Mm-hmm.
met friends that way, and met a community that way. And yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
And I
right.
think it's great too for people to kind of hear that perspective too, that you're not only working, but you have a family and there's ways to connect. And it's important to recharge yourself as well, and find those people to, have like-minded conversations or
I'm writing a new article about this coming up. How to work, set up a business, and have two under two. It's coming up.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
so powerful. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, no. But you do need to really nurture yourself. Like, it's so
Mm.
important. But a lot of the time, especially if your viewers are going through depressive or negative thoughts, I think the really key thing to remember is it's just thoughts. It's not
Yep.
reality, right?
Hmm.
So if we can just focus on something we're grateful for, start to retrain our brain, get in touch with these happiness practices that I discussed, that's going to make a massive, massive difference. There you
So,
go.
so sorry. Yep. So sorry. So you were saying about connecting and reframing the thoughts,
Yeah.
for people that are depressed. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And you're spot on about that as well. With depression, it really makes a person want to isolate themselves and not be social. So
Mm.
to reframe and say, hey, no, I'm feeling these thoughts. I need to get up and move. And maybe I need to call grandma today, or maybe I need to go on that walk with the neighbor, walk the dog,
Yeah.
whatnot.
Well,
Yes.
exactly. Start small. And actually, on that article that I wrote, I did put the benefits of exercise, and whether that's just 20 minutes of walking a day, as you say, that really, really helps. And, it all depends on the type of depression. Like, my dad was bipolar, right?
Mhm.
So when I talk about depression from his perspective, that's very, very different to
Mhm.
depression from my perspective, right? His was
Yeah.
clinical.
Yep.
And so I'm not like going to sit here and say, oh yeah, do these happiness practices and you'll feel fine if you're clinically depressed. That's not what I'm saying.
Yep.
But if you are, if you feel that normally you're okay, but suddenly you found yourself in a horrible dark spiral,
Mhm.
then those are the people that I can talk to and
Yeah.
really help with these mindfulness and happiness practices. So I just
Yeah.
want to distinguish between that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If people need to get professional treatment,
Yeah,
that they can, there's no problem in going to see a therapist or psychiatrist or whatnot. So
exactly.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Um, Third pillar of Move Happy is, of course, the movement side.
Mm.
It was established, created a program in a psych hospital, so it was very low budget. We had $100 to split each month between 15 of us staff, for the
Wow.
patients. And
Right.
I wanted to provide them a program to help inspire them to want to move,
Yeah.
whether they were in the hospital or whether they got discharged. And in the state of Washington, where I held the program, they had about $50 of discretionary income if they got discharged after their like rent and food was covered a month. So $50 a month for fun money
Yeah.
is not. Yeah, I didn't want them to have to go and pay for a gym membership and things like that. So with that in mind, what are what are some of your favorite ways to move your body, whether it's sports, physical activity, dance, anything like that, that don't cost a lot of money?
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm glad that you asked that. So YouTube is free. And
Yep.
my favorite thing to do is this yoga with Adriene. And I
Me
set
too.
myself, oh my God, what is this? How funny. So I set myself a challenge, the 30-day
Hmm.
challenge. She actually has a bunch of them on there.
Yeah.
And every morning, like, wake up and do 30 minutes. I also love Gabrielle Bernstein, and
Hmm.
she has an amazing podcast, and with guided meditations, Kundalini meditations, and
Hmm.
they're phenomenal. but like Kundalini yoga changed my life. Like it's fun, it's amazing. So
Awesome.
yeah, I would 100% recommend listening to her. um Another thing, so that's like a really good way. And then of course, like going for a walk is free, like in
Yeah.
nature. They say what, an hour of nature, 2 hours of nature a week can significantly increase your happiness. You might be thinking, well, how do I get to nature? Good point. I'm in the same boat. I don't have a car or anything like that. So we just have to use our imagination, maybe walk around the park, you know. That kind of thing. It doesn't have to be an exotic beach.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do. And with that $50, I would get a green juice every day. Like, just go treat yourself to a green juice. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but what you put into your body really impacts your mind. So, you know, what was it? Made in a plant void, is a plant eat, or something like that. Like, that's a really good quote. But you know, so just, you know, focusing on nurturing ourselves in every way that we can.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Excellent. Excellent. And what are you really excited about that you're focused on that we can support you with here at Move Happy?
Great. Well, I obviously, I've written my book, The Graduate Bible. It's not just for graduates, it's for non-graduates. I actually start with a story in there of how I helped a 17-year-old guy with no qualifications whatsoever. And he had literally, he said to me, he didn't want to do anything. I said, what are you good at? He was like, playing video games. And he genuinely thought that he could never get a job. And I ended up getting him a job as a software tester at Sega, a game tester. Yeah. So he's like, whoa. So if I can help him, I can help anyone. So of course, the book, check out my blog. So www.theapprenticeproject.com. I have a bunch of different articles on there. I'm building out my Instagram page now, so I might only have like 1 follower. So if you can follow the Apprentice Project, that would be great.
Awesome.
And follow me, and, you know, connect with me. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you listen to this podcast and you like it. And yeah, happy to help in any way that I can.
Awesome. Yeah, everyone needs to order your book. They need to connect with you on all social media platforms. You are phenomenal. I love it. I love
thank
it.
You. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like to do a silly question at the end just to help, you know, the audience kind of get to know you on a fun, silly, personal level. So this is total impromptu, just based on how the conversation is kind of ebbed and flowed. So I know you said you have 2 kids under 2.
Yeah, well, 2.3.
Okay.
Nearly 2.5. But yeah.
So when you're not working and you're not writing articles, what is your most enjoyable thing to do with your family?
With my family, I just love sitting there reading to the kids and cuddling. Like, we're very homebody now. Like, I used to be this travel and like party girl probably, and now I'm like the total opposite. So just like to be home and, you know, make food and cuddle and just be there for my kids. I know that's a bit boring, but it's the truth.
I love it. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. I think that's, honestly, I feel like a lot of families need more positive examples of actually spending quality time. Because you could be at home for hours, but you're all on your iPads, or you're all not being present in the moment. And that's beautiful. Reading to each other, remembering those stories. You know, your kids are going to remember that when they're older.
Oh, I know. I miss my kids. I dropped them off at daycare and they're traumatized. They're like, literally, you know, every morning, and I'm sure other mums on this podcast will resonate, but, you know, they've started daycare the last couple of weeks and they're crying, and it's such a horrific thing. And I've had to reframe my brain, you know, really by saying to myself, they're in the best place. They're going to have fun. You know, they can't just be coddled by me all the time, right?
And it's teaching them that socialization too, being around other kids and learning how to play and share and do all things that they will have to do when they're adults.
Exactly.
It's just that adjustment and transition for you. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. You're amazing. Can't wait to have you back on the show if you want to be back. I'm sure more people would want to hear more about what you're up to for a follow-up.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
Absolutely.
Bye.
All right.